IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It is Friday, November 29th. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. I'm sure all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're actually kind of celebrating Thanksgiving today, meal-wise anyway, because yesterday was we needed an emotional and physical day off after the week we had. So we decided to relax, get some stuff done around the house. And so we got the bird in the oven. So the Driscoll household smells really good right now. Got some football on over here. And of course, I'm joined by my guy, Trevor Trowbridge, who, Trev, it's football started yesterday. Big win for Memphis beating Tulane. There's some football on today. And of course, the biggest game of the weekend is the one, I think it's the one that's happening tomorrow in Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. It's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish against their true rival, the USC Trojans, also known as the Southern Cal Trojans. So it's here, Trev. I mean, this is the game we've been kind of looking towards for a while now. It's like, don't trip up with these other teams, and you got to get to that USC game with a chance to get into the playoff, and this is where we are. I feel like we're back in the day, the 70s and 80s, we're seeing 60s, 70s, and 80s, and the older fans will know this. It seemed like every year either USC or Notre Dame was playing for a championship going into that last weekend of the year when the Irish went out to California, and that is true again. Third time that's been true since 2010, Trev. 2012, Notre Dame went out to the Coliseum, and if you win, you clinch a spot in the BCS title game. 2018, you went out to the Coliseum undefeated with a chance to clinch a playoff berth if you can win that game. Irish were able to get both of them done. Very close competitive games. Third chance now. First time for Marcus Freeman to head out to the Coliseum, man. I am so fired up for this game, Trev. I'm ready to talk about it.
I'm ready, man. I love Notre Dame versus USC. It's my favorite rivalry. You guys know the first game that I ever sat down and watched from start to finish was 2005. Notre Dame versus USC. The old Bush push game. And since then, that's when I started to understand what a college football rivalry was all about. So before we hop into it today, Brian, you know what we got to talk about. We got to talk about our friends over at MyBookie, because there's no better way to watch rivalry weekend than with our friends over at MyBookie. So you guys know the drill. When you go and get signed up, make sure that you use promo code IRISH. What that's going to do is it's going to double your deposit bonus. So if you put in $10, they are going to give you $10 worth of bonus bets to help give you a little bit more fun, a little bit more action on rivalry weekend. You got Alabama, Auburn in the Iron Bowl. You have Michigan, Ohio State in the game. You have Notre Dame traveling out west to the Coliseum and with a playoff berth at stake. So
UT-A&M is back.
Yes. Texas A&M is back. So it's going to be an exciting weekend of football. Unfortunately, we are already past Thursday, but make sure you take advantage next weekend of MyBookie's risk-free Thursdays. I've gotten a couple questions about those, so that is found under the Bet Boosts tab. So make sure you go and check that out and sign up for that before every Thursday night football game. Also, be sure to enroll in their loyalty rewards program, where you can start earning extra cash just by placing down some bets. And of course, there's going to be a full slate of NFL games on Sunday. So be sure to check out our friends over at MyBookie, where you can bet anything, anytime, and anywhere.
Next weekend, gonna have championship game weekend. It's gonna be some playoff hopes still on the line. So a lot going on next weekend. Army Navy's the week after that. Man, there's so much good football left, Trevor. It feels like there's sort of an ending to the season, right? That's what the last weekend is. But man, it is really, especially now at the playoff format, it's just the beginning, really, of the huge part of this season. So today, Trev, we're going to talk about Notre Dame USC. We're going to do three different things, and I want to give you guys a heads up. So we are not going to do countdown to kickoff this week. I haven't talked to Trevor if he's going to be able to do this with us, but Vince and I decided, instead of doing countdown to kickoff, we're going to do IB game day tomorrow. So we're going to go live at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And we're going to recap today's games, and we'll recap a little bit the Memphis-Tulane game from last night, because that shook up the playoff ramifications. Boise State is like, woo, okay, we're good. We think we're good. Boise's in a position now, if they lose, they could still probably get in. If they lose, they're smacking Oregon State right now. But if they lose to UNLV next weekend, actually, no, they won't, because they won't. No, they'll be out. So I'm trying to think about this. The Big 12 is probably the biggest beneficiary. Actually, now that I think about it, it's the Big 12 that's thinking like, okay, our champ is going to have a great shot at getting in. because of Tulane getting beat. We'll break that down. We'll talk about the games from today. And then, of course, we'll preview all the big games tomorrow. So we'll talk about Notre Dame USC, but it'll be part of sort of a bigger picture look at the week, the game day week. And she heard me. She heard me talking about this with Vince yesterday. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And we've thought about maybe doing this sort of regularly on Saturdays. We're not sure but we're going to see how tomorrow goes, see what kind of audience we have, see what kind of, what kind of show it is and the engagement and all that type of stuff. So we'll see. Maybe we might continue. We might do this on championship weekend. We'll see. We'll see, Trev. We'll see what we're going to do. But so we're going to do something a little bit different this week. 10 a.m. Eastern is when we're going to go live. So we're going to, just sort of kind of have our game day, and we'll take it right up until noon, real close to noon, and then we'll kind of wrap things up so we can all go relax and watch the noon game. So we'll do that tomorrow. And so, and then of course, Trev, we're going to do today. We're going to talk about this game. We're going to talk keys to victory. We're going to talk about, obviously, we're going to do our predictions, and then Bill Bender and I we'll get Bill's thoughts on all the games tomorrow as well, which is going to be a lot of fun, man. But kick things off, Trev, obviously keys to victory. What does Notre Dame have to do to win this game? I think that when you look at USC, you see 6-5. You see they lost to Minnesota. They lost to Maryland. They've got some bad losses, but this is a team that has literally been in every single game they have played this year. This is a team – I saw a tweet yesterday, and I don't remember who it was from, but there have only been 5 teams in the country, including Notre Dame being one of them, who has led in the fourth quarter of every game they've played this year. Because remember, Notre Dame had a 14-13 lead on Northern Illinois late in that game. USC is one of those 5. They have led in the fourth quarter of every single game that they've played. All 5 of their losses have been by 7 points or less. They have a 7-point loss, a 5-point loss, a 3-point loss, and of course had the 1-point loss to Maryland, a game where they were leading, and then of course they had the loss to Michigan, as 3-point loss to Michigan as well. So this is a good football team. Right? Well, I should say this is a scrappy football team. I don't know if I'd say that they're good, because they've got to learn how to win before you can say that they're good. But they're a competitive football team. They have talent. They don't quit, right? That's the thing about this USC team. They don't quit. And some of the quitters that they have are gone, Barry Alexander being one. And I think they've been a better team since then because of his departure. So Notre Dame is going to have to play good football tomorrow. This is not a team that's just going to roll over and you're just going to out-athlete for 60 minutes the way they have some other teams they've played. You have to play good football to win this game. And when you talk about the keys to victory, we'll have offensive and defensive ones, Trev, but I think there's 3 that are sort of bigger picture that we wanted to hit on before it started. And the first one is the turnover battle is going to be huge. I mean, you part of the reason USC has won some close games that they probably should have blown out a team, and part of the reason they've lost some of the games they've lost is because they do not turn the ball. They turn the ball over too much. They have 3 games this season where they've turned it over 3 or more times. They're shockingly 1-2 in those games. And then the one game that they won, they were down 21-10 because of those turnovers and had to come back to win. They're not going to come back on Notre Dame the way they did Wisconsin. They can't afford to fall behind like that. 2 other games where they turned the ball over twice. They're 1-1 in those games. And we're, that Nebraska game was one that maybe could have been a little bit more convincing had they not turned the ball over. So you look at it, Trev, and in their wins, they have the 3 turnover game that they won, but they didn't turn it over at all against LSU. They only turned it over once against Utah State. They didn't turn it over at all against Rutgers. They didn't turn it over at all against UCLA. So they don't turn the ball over. They're hard to beat. At least that's how they've been so far this season. When they turn the ball over, some games that they win are a little bit more competitive. And then, of course, they're able to lose some games. So that's the big thing. And Notre Dame there is literally been no team in the country this year, not a one, that does a better job forcing turnovers than Notre Dame. Notre Dame right now, Trevor, ranks number 1 in the nation in turnovers gained with 26. They're 1 ahead of James Madison, Alabama, and Duke. So, you're talking about a team, and they do it like they're 3rd in fumble recoveries and they're 9th in interceptions. So they do it different ways. And so this is going to be a big part of the game on both sides of the ball, Trev. That's why we're talking about it now before that we get to the offensive defense, because it's going to be a big part of the game. If Notre Dame can get USC to turn the ball over, then they can win and win big. If USC protects the football, or Notre Dame can't force turnovers, or Notre Dame gets into forcing turnovers, then this game could be a lot closer than we hope that it will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame's also in the top 2 in the country in turnover margin as well, talking about both sides of the football. And Notre Dame's offense has done a really good job of not turning the ball over the last couple games, which is one of the reasons as to why they're able to blow these leads open so much. Another game where USC didn't turn the ball over at all was the last time Notre Dame played in the LA Memorial Coliseum. So USC, look, they're a team where obviously the record doesn't reflect how competitive that they can be. They do a really good job of keeping games ugly, if that makes sense, because they are such a gritty football team. They let Nebraska and UCLA move the ball up and down the field on them. They just couldn't finish in the red zone. Right. Nebraska only scored 20 points. UCLA only scored 13. But each team was able to move the ball up and down the field on them. They were just able to muddy some things up in the red zone.
That's the Danton Lynn effect right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is, Trev.
Yeah.
Last year's defense, Alex Grinch defense, they're going down the field and they're punching those balls in the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And causing turnovers is going to be huge. I mean, Notre Dame forced 5 turnovers last year against USC, and it was a 28-point ball game. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame scored in all 3 phases. So turnovers are going to be huge. I know we're going to dive more into it once we break down the defense individually. I think they're going to be able to get Jaden Mavia in a couple of different ways, but turnovers are going to be huge. It's going to create a short field for your team. And Notre Dame's offense has done a really good job this year of taking advantage of when they do have a short football field to work with. So turnovers have to be top of mind. Have to be.
Well, you talk about that 2022 game, Trev, and Notre Dame had 3 turnovers in that game, 2 direct turnovers, and then they had a turnover on downs.
Yep.
The turnover at the end of the game obviously kept them from having a chance to win the game. They're down 31-21. They throw a pick. You score there, there's still 5-6 minutes left. You score there, it's a different ball game. But you think about the turnover on downs. You're down 10-0, and you've got a chance to move the field. They got that ridiculous 4th and 1 call, which I was like, okay, the tight end sneak is coming now. You had the jet sweep right to Logan Diggs on that. I just like the drive was just really frustrating. You had 2nd and 5. You run I think it was the jet sweep to Logan Diggs. Then Drew Pine tries to quarterback sneak it, I think, on 3rd and 2. And then they ran the Mitchell Evans thing, which they had already done multiple times. USC was prepared for it. They stopped them there. And then, fortunately, the defense was able to hold, but you had any chance of momentum, you couldn't get it. Your defense forces a punt. Offense finally goes down and scores a touchdown. Defense gives it right back up. You're down 17-7 at halftime. You come out the second half, and Notre Dame goes right down the field. Drew Pine hits Michael Mayer on back-to-back plays. They get down inside the 25-yard line. Drew Pine fumbles the ball. I mean, they were cooking on that drive, Trev. They were cooking. All of a sudden, you punch that sucker in the end zone. It's 17-14, and it's a brand-new ball game. And it wasn't even a forced turnover. It just dropped the ball, and USC picks it up. And then USC goes down and makes it 24-7. Notre Dame shows that they didn't quit. They score back. It's 24-14. USC goes up again, 31-24. Notre Dame scores again to make it 31-21. Defense forces a punt. Notre Dame gets the ball back with 6:03 left in the game, and 3 plays later, Drew Pine has Deion Colsey open in a cover 2 hole on the left. He's not one to throw it, looks around, throws over the middle, gets picked off. Basically, at that point in time, the ball game's over. But you go down the field and score there, it's a 3-point game with maybe 2-3 minutes left. You got a shot there of maybe making a defensive stop and going down and winning the game. USC goes 24 yards, punches it in, and the game's over, 38-21. And that's all she wrote at that point in time. So, and like you said, you couldn't make stops against USC that day by forcing turnovers yourself. So, like you said, Trev, it's a great example. You want to know how important turnovers are in a game like this? Go back and watch that game 2 years ago. It's a great example. Here's another one too, Trev, is field position. And I'm watching USC, and I think it was 2 games late in the year, like Penn State was 1 too, I think, where their punter pinned teams inside like the 2-yard line. And I think it was the Penn State game. Maybe it was the Nebraska UCLA or the UCLA game where literally it gets stopped like 3 inches outside the goal line. And that type of field position helped change the game. UCLA was able to make a big pass to kind of get out of it, but it put them behind a little bit, and they couldn't quite get to where they needed to get to kind of put some longer drives together. This is not an easy defense to go 98 yards on. And then, of course, Notre Dame's defenses might be the toughest in the country to go 98 yards on. You know what I mean? So, field positions is going to be huge. And that kind of ties into the third part of it, Trevor, which is when you talk about sort of just the big picture keys to victory is your special teams can't hurt you. This is the kind of game where a missed field goal, a muffed punt, shanked punt, things like that, where you give USC a short field can really hurt you. And on the flip side, if you play sound special teams, don't let Mekhi Lemon get any big kick returns. Don't let Zechariah Branch get any long punt returns. Make them go 75-plus yards every time they get the football. You're going to have a pretty good chance of keeping the points down. What you can't do is let USC get short drives. You can't let USC get short field touchdowns. That's what you absolutely cannot do in a game like this. You're going to have to force them to go up and down the field. They were able to do that in 2022. They had zero chance of doing that last year. You've got to be able to make that happen. And so field position is going to be a huge, huge part of this game, Trevor, and special teams is going to play a big role in that, positively, and you got to make sure it's not negatively. But that's going to be, man, that's such a huge part of this.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, special teams can't be a liability this game in either phase, whether it's the field goal kicking game, the extra point game, the kick coverage game, the punt coverage game. It needs to be a well-executed game from the special teams. Not saying that they have to go out and do things, miraculously. I'm not expecting another kick return for a touchdown like we saw last year. Would I be upset? No, I wouldn't be at all. I'm not expecting Mitch Jeter to go out there and bang a 53-yarder. Would I be upset? Absolutely not. Just do your job. Execute. Don't be the reason. Don't miss a 40-yard field goal and give USC the ball at the 35, right? It can't be something like that. So special teams is going to play a big part in winning the field position battle. And I like that you put that key in there, Bryan, because I think that's also going to go towards the first point that you made, is causing turnovers. Give Notre Dame's offense a short field to work with. Make them be as efficient as possible. So field position game is going to be massive for them on Saturday.